Benedict was born in Nursia to a Roman noble. He had a twin sister named Scholastica, who is also a canonized saint. In the year 500, when he was around 20 years old, he abandoned his studies and left home. Benedict did not leave Rome to become an ascetic, just to leave the life of a big city. Benedict moved to Endife with his nurse and lived by a church to St. Peter with a group of virtuous men, whose life outlooks were similar to his. Endife is only 2 miles from Subiaco, where Benedict would later found many monasteries. After residing in Endife for a while, Benedict left to visit a nearby town. On his return trip back to Endife, Benedict met a monk from Subiaco named Romanus, who explained his purpose in Subiaco and how he had taken up the habit. Romanus's monastery was on a mountaintop overhanging a cliff near a lake. Benedict, inspired by Romanus's words, lived as a hermit for the next 3 years in a cave above this lake. For those 3 years, Romanus served Benedict in any way that he could. In St. Gregory's narration of Benedict's life, it is at this point that Gregory begins calling Benedict a man of God instead of just an adolescent. Benedict changed in many ways during this time. He was isolated, except for infrequent visits from Romanus and a select few other visitors. When an abbot in a nearby monastery died, the monastic community came to Benedict and asked him to be their abbot. He hesitantly agreed, warning them that he would be too stern for them, but they still wanted his guidance. Eventually, these monks grew tired of Benedict and tried to poison him. First, they envenomed his drink, but as Benedict blessed the chalice, it shattered. Later, the same monks poisoned his bread, but as Benedict blessed it, a raven flew down and snatched it away. Consequently, Benedict returned to his cave in Subiaco. Another group of monks sought his guidance, and with them, Benedict founded 12 monasteries. He also founded the monastery at Monte Cassino, the most famous of his monasteries. One popular vignette about Benedict's time at the monastery begins when a poor man came to the monastery begging for oil. The quartermaster of the monastery refused to give any to the man because the monastery would have none left to light the hallways. Benedict heard about the incident, began to pray, and the vial of oil began to bubble and overflow. Then they had enough to give to the poor man. He later left the monasteries he founded at Subiaco because attacks from a hermit made it difficult for him to continue his spiritual lifestyle and guidance. Benedict was the first to set up monastic communities like these and guide them with a rule. Benedict employed his rule to teach his students about rhetorical speech and using the Word of God. Half of his rule is spiritual, while the other half is about ways to run a monastery. In the spiritual part of his rule, St. Benedict focused on psalms for prayer because he recognized their beauty and because Jesus himself prayed with psalms. Benedict wrote that when a monk hears the signal for designated prayer times throughout the day, he must stop what he is doing and go to the chapel to pray. If he cannot make it, he must kneel and pray right where he is. Benedict died at Monte Cassino of a fever on the day that God had indicated that he would die. He was buried next to his sister Scholastica. Though he has been dead for 1,500 years, Benedict's rule and spirit live on today in the Benedictine order, the order that the monks here at Priory are a part of.